Long before Europe invented banking, long before the Knights Templar built their web of credit that let nobles cross continents without touching a coin, China had already done something far more radical. They created money you couldn't hold value, printed on paper, backed not by metal but by belief. And with that, they built the first large-scale fiat economy in human history, centuries before the West even imagined it. If you love the real stories behind money and power, hit like and subscribe before we go on. Now, let's dive in. Western history tells a comforting story that financial innovation began in Europe, that Rome invented banks, medieval Italians invented accounting, the Dutch gave birth to modern capitalism. There's truth in that, but it's not the whole truth. Because before any of it, before Europe had a banking class or a central treasury, China faced a problem so massive it forced them to reinvent money itself. And unlike Europe, China didn't start this in the Middle Ages. It began during the Tang dynasty around the 7th century after Christ and accelerated into the Song dynasty by the 10th. China wasn't just another empire. It was the world's largest and most complex market cities, exceeding 1 million people, commercial hubs humming with trade, administrative networks so vast they made medieval Europe look like a loose confederation of villages. But inside this thriving economy was a vulnerability that would change the history of money. The empire relied almost entirely on copper coinage. A single coin weighed only a few grams, but trade volumes were enormous. A merchant paying for a major shipment might need tens of thousands of coins tied onto ropes, physical burdens hauled across mountains, ferried down rivers, and guarded from bandits. Picture caravans dragging sacks of copper that clanged like wind chimes and weighed as much as a man. This worked as long as the empire had enough copper, but by the late Tang and early Song, that balance collapsed. Population surged, trade expanded, urban markets exploded. The empire minted coins furiously, but supply never matched demand. Copper prices spiked, shortages spread, and merchants, the most pragmatic innovators in any civilization, did what they always do under pressure. They created a workaround. In Sichuan, known for its entrepreneurial culture, merchants began depositing their heavy copper coins with trusted local shops. In exchange, they received a jiaozi, a paper certificate, stating how much they deposited, carrying the issuer's seal, signatures, and patents to prevent forgery. You could carry it easily, trade it, and redeem it for real coins whenever you wanted. These were the world's first widely circulating paper promissory notes, proto-banknotes, created not by a government, but by merchants serving a need. They weren't symbolic. They were practical, lighter, and above all, they reduced the risk of being robbed on the road. Medieval Europe had pilgrim letters for travel, but those didn't circulate as money. Jiaozi did. At first, this was a regional solution, but success attracted attention. The system spread across Sichuan, and other provinces imitated it. In a moment of pure historical irony, merchants had created a more efficient monetary system than the empire that ruled them. So, the Song dynasty, one of the most sophisticated governments in history, faced a decision any modern regulator would recognize. Do we shut this down or take control of it? They chose control. Around 1023, the Song government nationalized the jiaozi system. It banned private note issuance, created official printing offices, and introduced the world's first government-backed paper money. What began as merchant convenience became state power. The new notes had denominations standardized by law, and expiration dates usually 3 years to force circulation and prevent hoarding. And they circulated only within assigned regions to stop capital flight. Most importantly, they were redeemable for metal, at least at first. For a moment, China had built a perfect hybrid: paper money with fractional backing, printing controlled by the state, and an economy large enough to actually need it. This was centuries before Europe's first banknotes, before the Bank of England, before the Templars built their credit network across Christendom. But with innovation comes temptation. Paper money made the economy move faster and tax collection easier, and it funded the Song military. Because it was cheap to produce, it became a fiscal shortcut so attractive that discipline eroded almost immediately. The government issued more notes, then more. Redemption promises weakened as reserves thinned. Inflation crept, then surged. By the late 1100s, the value of paper money diverged sharply from its backing, and China faced something no civilization ever had: the world's first fiat inflation crisis. The Song government tried to fix it: new printing limits, adjusted exchange rates, new notes like the huizi. But once public confidence fractures, Even the smartest bureaucracy in history can't glue it back together. Still, the idea survived because it worked. Despite the disasters, China had built something that reshaped global finance. Money printed by the state, circulating by law, backed not by metal but by credibility. And that credibility was about to face its greatest test. Because in the 13th century, a new power swept into China, the Mongols. Where most conquerors worry only about territory, Kublai Khan, founder of the Yuan dynasty, understood something deeper. Controlling land is good, but controlling money is better. So he didn't abandon paper money. He went all in. Under the Yuan dynasty in the late 1200s, paper money didn't just circulate in China. It became the first empire-wide fiat system in the world, a single currency for lands stretching from the Korean peninsula to parts of Persia. For the first time, money made of paper, backed only by imperial authority, became the financial backbone of a transcontinental state. Marco Polo witnessed this firsthand at Kublai Khan's court, describing it with a mix of awe and disbelief. He marveled that the emperor took mulberry bark, stamped it with official seals, declared it money, and people accepted it as if it were pure gold. To Europeans of the 13th century, money without metal sounded like sorcery. Meanwhile, China had been using it for over 200 years. But Kublai faced the same eternal temptation that destroys every fiat system. Printing money is easier than raising revenue. Military campaigns drained the treasury. Administration costs ballooned. And with each crisis, the state did what every desperate government does. It printed more. By the mid-1300s, yuan paper currency was collapsing under hyperinflation. Prices soared. Notes lost almost all value. And when the Mongols were pushed out and the Ming dynasty took control, the new rulers conducted one of the most brutal financial audits in history. They abolished paper money altogether. China, birthplace of the world's first fiat currency, swore it off for centuries. It was a lesson too painful to repeat. And yet the invention endured, because it had to. Money is technology, and once a society discovers a more efficient form of it, there's no going back, even if the first few versions explode on impact. China's paper money was like the first combustion engine, dangerous, unstable, but revolutionary. And here's a myth worth correcting. The West believes financial innovation arrived through medieval Europe. The Medici, the Templars with their letters of credit. The Templars did build something extraordinary. Nobles could deposit coin in Paris and withdraw it in Jerusalem. But those letters weren't money. They were receipts. You couldn't spend them in markets or circulate them freely. Paper money as an everyday circulating medium didn't appear in Europe until the 1600s, roughly 600 years after China's first Jiaozi. The West built banking first. China built currency first. And it's not hard to see why. China had two advantages Europe lacked: paper and scale. Europe used parchment, thick, expensive, animal-based. You could write a contract on it, not print a currency. China had been making paper since the 2nd century before Christ, and its economy was enormous. When an economy grows faster than its metal supply, innovation becomes necessity. Now jump to the present. When people worry about inflation, fractional reserves, or central banks printing money out of thin air, they imagine these as modern inventions, but the truth is much older. China discovered the power and danger of fiat 1,000 years before the West took the same risk. They learned that trust is the true backing of money, that overprinting dissolves it, and that the moment people doubt the promise on a note, a financial system can evaporate. What China faced in the 1100s and 1300s is essentially the same script countries replay now, from quantitative easing to currency crises. The technology changed, the psychology didn't. And the most striking parallel, China's system started as a private merchant innovation, just as today's most radical experiments, cryptocurrencies, digital payments, shadow credit, begin in the private sector, forcing states to respond, regulate, or co-opt them. So what's the real lesson beneath this 1,000-year story? It's simple and unsettling. Money is a story, and whoever controls the story controls the value. The merchants of Sichuan controlled it first. The Song dynasty took it next, and Kublai Khan expanded it beyond anything the world had seen. And when trust collapsed, the value collapsed with it. The same applies now. Whether it's dollars, euros, yuan, or digital tokens, the system works only as long as people believe it does. Fiat currencies are psychological agreements, and trust is the hardest currency to print. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If this gave you a new perspective on how money and power really work, hit like and subscribe because history always has the answers. You just have to know where to look.